Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Beer 30 story. I just thought of one. This is my second beer. Things are starting to flow pretty good now. I would have done it outside, but the wind's blowing out of the west about 20 miles an hour, and it just couldn't. The little mic ain't going to work in that much wind. So, having said that, I was inspired to do a Beer 30 video, so let's get at it, Rusty. This will be about the U.S. Peace Corps, uh, the beginning. Okay, I went in the U.S. Peace Corps in 1994 and went to Mongolia. I was in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, which is the capital of the country, for a couple of years there, and it was a real experience. I promise you that. But anyway, I'm just going to talk about the beginning because the rest of it is just it would take forever. But I did do. There are some videos you can look at my playlist, and you can look at. There's I think I did a couple on the Peace Corps, U.S. Peace Corps, Mongolia. You can check them out. But this one I don't think I talked about this much. Maybe I did, but I will do it again just for those of you that haven't watched any of that. But in 1993, I guess it was, in November, for some reason, I felt inspired to apply for admission into the U.S. Peace Corps because I had wanted to. I wanted to go in 1972 when I was going to St. Mary's University in San Antonio, but I was married at the time, and in order for both of you to go to the same country, you have to have a skill that's needed in that country. So that didn't work out. But having said that, 1993, I applied. Back then it was a long process because there was no internet. Everything had to be mailed back and forth, and so it took a lot of time there. And then of course you have to be, the FBI background check. You got to go by the police department, your fingerprints and all that stuff, mug shots, all kind of stuff. And of course get a passport, which was not a problem. But anyway, so I applied and then I was accepted. I think I got my acceptance letter in March of 1994. And the way that works, I found out later, is your information is sent to the country or to a couple of countries or whoever might need your skills. I was a CPA and had some accounting skills. And so I was going in as a small business into what's called small business administration. And so Mongolia responded, and then they sent me a letter asking me if I would be interested in going to Mongolia. And of course, I didn't know anything about Mongolia. I don't know that many people around me knew any. I doubt if anybody knew anything about it. But anyway, I went to the library, and there, you couldn't go on the internet. That was the sad part. Back then, you couldn't Google search for a lot of information. You had to go dig it out manually. So anyway, I went to the library in Austin and around different places, and read up. I kind of knew what the country was about. I knew it was poor. I knew that the Russians were pulling out. The economy was bad. And anyway, but get on to the chase here. In June, excuse me, yeah, in June, the first part of June, I flew out of Austin, Texas. I was driving an old 79 Chevrolet pickup at that time, and I sold it to a friend of mine, and he said that when I got back, if he still had it and I wanted it, I could buy it back for that same price. So that was the agreement we had on the vehicle. But anyway, it was a kind of a lonely day. Just this old man drove me out to the airport in Austin and caught the flight to San Francisco, California. And then we took a little shuttle bus or something to Chinatown where we stayed. And before everything got started, though, we had to have, there was meetings and stuff, and they were telling us about why we were in Chinatown, but to get used to the culture, because there is such a thing, and I believe it now. I didn't believe it then, as culture shock, because the Asian culture is just so different from the way I grew up. I mean, well, the way I grew up wasn't that much different. It was just the way things got done, so to speak. I don't know. Mainly, a culture is basically in the language. The language is the key to a culture, in my opinion. But having said that, moving on, at the meetings, I realized that I was the old dog in the hunt by far. At that time, I was 49, and the nearest person to me was a Chinese American named Gary. I won't mention anybody's full name, and that was it. And then below him, between the rest of the group, there were like 18 of us. The group was aged 22 to 30, okay, and everywhere in between. And these people were from University of Southern California. They were from Yale, Harvard. Most of them came from fairly well-to-do families. In fact, a few of them came from some really well-to-do families and lived very good in country. Okay, me, I didn't. You're not going to believe this. When I left out in June, I had $300. That's it. That's all the cash. That was all the cash I had. That's it, total. Anyway, so I wasn't doing too well, right? So right, we get to the hotel. We stayed at the Holiday Inn in Chinatown in San Francisco for a few days. I'm not sure, maybe it was 2 or 3 days. It wasn't very long. And yeah, it was a little culture shock right there because Chinatown in San Francisco at that time, and I'm sure it's the same way today, is basically China. Okay, and a lot of stuff. The little pointed roofs and all that stuff. Yeah, a lot of different colors and different foods, and particularly different foods. So yeah, for this old country boy, I'd traveled. I'd been in Mexico. I'd been to Canada. I'd been to Hawaiian Islands. I'd been out in the Caribbean, but I'd never been to an Asian country, or I'd never even been to Europe for that matter. And so, it was this old boy was being. I was really watching there, and not understanding the Asian languages. And some of these guys that were with us had some language skills. There was a few people that spoke Russian, a few people that spoke Mandarin Chinese and stuff. I didn't. I spoke English and a little Spanish. I could get beer and water and other things in Spanish, but I couldn't get anything in Russian. But so anyway, and if you spoke Russian, that was a big advantage in Mongolia because a lot of them spoke Russian because their borders right there. So we stayed at the Holiday Inn, and we ate some food, the Chinese food, which is Chinese food's fine with me. Pork, chicken, and that sort of stuff is okay with me. I didn't have any problem with that. Probably pretty healthy actually. And so we stayed there, and then I remember I did do something that I called them the children because they were so much younger than me. There was three of us in one room, me and two other guys. That's how cheap the U.S. was at that time. Jesus Christ! I mean, come on, guys. But anyway, I guess that was to get us, used to the dorm life we were going into. Sort of. It was okay though. They were cool. And anyway, so they were going out one night to do something. I said, no, I don't. I believe I pass on that. So what I did was I called I think it was North Point Pizza, and ordered a super, because I felt like it'd be a long time before I had another one. And I ordered a large super duper. I think it cost me $20 or something, and it was a large super duper. They delivered it to the hotel, and boy, I mean, it was delicious. I mean, I pigged out. I had me a few beers and some pizza, and I was in heaven. And little did I know that it's going to be a long time before I saw another pizza. It was. And so we flew out. We left the hotel to go to the airport. And when we got to the airport, we had some Peace Corps. I don't know what they were, administrators, I guess, with us, and they, from previous experience, learned that if you tied a colored ribbon, so to speak, or string on your baggage, on all the volunteers' baggage, then when you went to when you got into an airport and your luggage was coming down the conveyor, then somebody could just pull off the one, in our case, with the orange strings on it, and so you put orange strings on your luggage. I had one bag, that's all I had, and it had some clothes and stuff, but that was it. I mean, I was pretty light. And a lot of the other guys, you could also send what was called a box that came by the diplomatic pouch. Well, I kind of missed that. Well, I because it said you could send books and stuff, like your teaching materials and stuff. Well, I didn't have any, and so I didn't take advantage of that option. A lot of them, sent extra clothes and stuff, but I didn't. I just had, my stuff was rolled up in a ball inside that little bag. It was about, this. I mean, it had a lot of stuff. And so when the bags came out, we took the ones off with the orange strings, and that worked real good because we flew from San Francisco 13 hours to Tokyo, and then I don't know, it was a couple hours from Tokyo to Beijing, and so by the time we got to Beijing, we were pretty well ragged out, and we stayed at I pronounce it Movenpick Hotel there in Beijing, and not very nice place actually, very nice. And I was always looking for bottled water, man, and it was hard to find. But when I found some, I'd get all I could get because I didn't want to get the bug right away. But once you got into Mongolia, you couldn't get away from it. It got you. So we stayed there at the hotel a couple of days. And you get used to the Asian deal. You know, you come into the room, you got to put the slipper. You don't have to, but just as a common courtesy, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So you'd come in, take your shoes off, put on the little slippers they had. And believe it or not, the slippers they had in my room, that somehow they knew in advance. I don't know how, but these were big slippers and they fit okay. So yeah, well, and there's a big, nice room. Yeah, and I had that one by myself, which was very nice. Enjoyed that. I think was there 2 nights, and then we took a bus to the airport in Beijing, and flew MIAT, M-I-A-T, Mongolian International Air Travel, to Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar. And you know, when you at the airport in Beijing to get on the MIAT, or the Mongolian airliner, you walked out there carrying your bag and climbed the steps and got in. You know, okay, it didn't pull right up to the hangar and you go in. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so yeah, that was different. And you know, it was crowded. The airliner was pretty crowded, and you know, I noticed, you know, the dress of the Mongolians that were going back to in country. And so, you know, as we're flying into Mongolia, I mean, I looked at the vastness of the country, and you know, the population density per mile is, I think, one. No, I'm serious. It's one of the least densely populated countries in the entire world. Okay, and it is. I tell you, because I got out in what's called the steppe, out in the countryside, and believe me, man, ain't nothing there. I mean, it makes Big Bend look crowded. I'm telling you. Woo. Anyway, so we get in to we're flying into Mongolia, and I'm thinking, man, what have you done now? This is a biggie. This is a biggie. I mean, yo, I'm looking out the window and I'm going, oh shit. Anyway, so we get in country, and then you got to go through 6 months of training, or 6 months, 6 weeks of training, and we were staying at a old Russian officers' quarters, and it was 2 stories, old building, you know, World War II looking stuff, and yeah, it was, you know, of course, no air, no central air, no heat, no nothing. I mean, it was okay. It was because this was in the summer and it wasn't too bad, and we were only going to be there for 6 weeks, and then we'd go to our posts wherever those happened to be. After you stayed 2 weeks in country with a host family. So anyway, when we got to the building, since I had the least luggage to carry, I got in the building first and found me a nice private room and nice view, and put my stuff on the bed there, and assumed that anybody with any common sense would know that I staked my claim. Well, the Young Turks then, they didn't, you know, anyway, they didn't respect that, all right, and I had to clarify that. So we kind of started off on the left foot, you know, because I went to the restroom or something and came back, and it's a long way to the restroom, big building, came back, and there was 2 guys in there. And they had put their stuff in there. So, what, we're going to do the threesome again? Yeah, well, I don't know. And I said, hold it, guys. This is my room, okay? Go find you a room. There's plenty of them. They're all around here. Go pick you out one. Anyway, there were a few words, and that kind of got me off. Anyway, I wasn't the most popular volunteer from that point forward. And because they were all young and they could communicate, they knew their songs and stuff, and be that. And anyway, it wasn't bad though. It was just a little friction there because I was older and I wasn't going to put up with a lot of crap, and I didn't. So, and that didn't help me a lot with the administrators either, because I'm older. I was older, man. I mean, I'd say, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm not going to do that. You know, you're not supposed to do that." Well, I did, and so but we were there for 6 weeks in the dorm, and then you went to stay with a host family for 2 weeks, and then you got your you went to your site wherever it was. I was in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. I went from the officers' quarters thing, 2 weeks with a host family. They were pretty wealthy, and yeah, they had an apartment, but it had like 3 rooms, and I slept on the couch in the living room, you know. And it worked out okay. I'm not complaining. But the wife could speak a little English. The husband couldn't speak any. I couldn't speak very much Mongolian. I mean, very little, 2 or 3 words. And so that was a little difficult. But after that, then you got your spot and I was in a 9-story building. The Russian architecture there was 9 stories was it. Nothing over 9 stories. So I was on the 8th floor, and there was a floor above me, and boy, that was a mistake because the Russians, they'll drink a little bit and they'll make a little noise, and so will people from other countries. But it wasn't that bad. I dealt with it. But my apartment was okay. Had a big balcony and stuff, and it was just a big room. It was furnished, and the bed was hard as a rock, hard as a rock. And well, actually, it was two little cots in the bedroom. And what I did, I pulled them together, and then with some pillows and some other stuff, made a kind of a bed that was about a twin size bed, which worked out pretty good. I was comfortable. And then as far as hot and cold water, it just depended on which way the phase of the moon, because it was there sometimes it wasn't. The way they heated the water was they had a coal-fired power plant that heated water for to make steam, etc. Well, anyway, they used that heated water that came out in these big insulated pipes, and it went all over the city of Ulaanbaatar to these buildings, and that was your heat. It was a radiator type heat, and it was controlled. It was turned on by the government and turned off by the government. There was no control in the unit or the place you were staying at all anywhere. It just came on and off. And so what would happen is heat rises. Okay, so if I was on the 8th floor, so I was warm all the time. In fact, I had to open windows because it was so damn warm. The people on the first 3 floors were freezing their butts off. Okay, and I would heard some volunteers talking about that. But you could get in this little bitty elevator when it worked, and you'd hear 2 or 3 different languages because you had people from, of course, Russia, North Korea, a few Chinese. No. The only English speakers in that building that I knew of there was another Peace Corps volunteer that had been in country for a year, and myself, and that was it. That was it. And as far as getting food, you went to the circus market, and they had food sometimes that you wanted, and sometimes they didn't. Bread you could get most of the time, and the way they got, they're a landlocked country. Mongolia is landlocked. They don't have any oceanfront property, so to speak. So everything comes in by rail or truck or airplane, which is not much. And so when the train comes in, within a day that the shelves are going to be populated with toilet paper, hello, and maybe some bottled water, which is great. But what I learned to do, I kept these old Pepsi jugs, the 1 liter Pepsi jugs, when I could get them, and I would keep them. And I would boil about a gallon of water in this big pot I had on this old Russian stove with a 2-burner electric thing. It was electric. I mean, and once it took forever to get the burner hot, about 20 minutes. But once you got it hot, you could turn it off because you could cook a meal. It would last. It would stay hot for an hour or so. Anyway, enough said. But anyway, yeah. So I boiled the water and I'd fill up those Pepsi jugs and I'd take 1 with me or 2 with me when I was going wherever I was going because. Once I was in that building, then it was, I was teaching at a university about, it was probably from the building I was in to the university was probably about 5 miles, approximately 4 miles maybe. And you just walked. You walked parallel to the Tula River, which came out of Russia through Ulaanbaatar, and you crossed the bridge, and then on out up on the hill there was a university, and I taught there. But it really wasn't teaching because these kids are sharp. You know what I mean? They speak 4 or 5 languages, and and I was teaching graduate level students, which it was interesting. That's all. There in a whole year, I bet there wasn't 5 students that ever showed up because it may not have been a good day. That's kind of the Asian flavor of this may not be a good day to do it, so they don't. And but it was a hell of an experience, guys. I got to tell you. And then as far as eating, I went from I think when I went in country, I was right around 205 or 208 pounds, and when I arrived in on the island of Oahu, Queens Medical Center, and you come back through there and they check you all out, I weighed 158. Okay, does that tell you something? Yeah. Diarrhea is a good way to lose weight. I promise you. And if you never get rid of it for 2 years, totally, then you're gonna lose some weight. Guarantee you. Yeah. But I drank plenty of water, so I maintained my hydration, so I didn't get dehydrated. But overall, the Peace Corps is a tough experience if you do it right. Some of the volunteers had money, and so they actually, instead of taking the apartments that were assigned to them by the Peace Corps, they would actually rent very nice places, and had their clothes done, and their house, their apartment cleaned by somebody. I mean, yeah, they lived the good life. You know what I mean? They weren't. And hell, some of them had stereo systems and bars set up. Come on, man. But for me, I didn't have anything, and to get a beer was a treat. You had to go to the most dangerous places in Mongolia to get beer and stuff. But I did it. Did I pay the price? Yeah. It was worth it. It was worth it. But having said that, guys, that's the Peace Corps stuff. And overall, I'd give it about an 8 on the scale of 10 as far as an experience. If you did it right, if you just went there on vacation from home, and mom and dad came over and visited you while you were there, or you met them in Germany, or you met them in somewhere for a few weeks, and then came back in country, and then 6 months later or 3 months later you did it again. That certainly takes the pressure off. I'll tell you that, because yeah, there is a thing called culture shock, and it's a case of big fish eat little fish everywhere on this planet. And I was a little fish. I didn't get eaten, but I got chewed on. I'll say that. But having said that, guys, just thought I'd go over this, and now I got to get to my beer before it gets warm. But anyway, from Central Texas, USA, guys, on a Saturday evening where it's kind of windy here. Is it still windy? I thought the wind might lie here. Maybe it will die down a little bit. It's been out of the west all day. But anyway, so far the phone's working okay. That's fine. I mean, as far as the videos, if you can't please everybody, you got to please yourself. So that's how that's going to go. Anyway, thumbs up, guys. Adios. Bye-bye. Buy anything you want. But if you think about it, use the link to Amazon products in the description of all my videos. Why? Because I get a small commission. Doesn't cost you 1 penny. What else? Drink plenty of water. 3 or 4 quarts a day. 3 or 4 quarts a day won't hurt you. It's good for you. It'll help you avoid gout, kidney stones, and it'll help you lose weight because you'll be full of water and you won't want to eat so much. What else? Take deep breaths. Breathe in real deep, and then breathe out slowly. Why? Because that relieves stress, and relieving stress does what? Lowers your blood pressure. Is that good for you? You know it is. What else? Stretch, 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 walk, walk, walk. I finally got my opportunity to do that this morning, and I did it. And I'll do it. I'm supposed to have lunch with my son tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. And what else? Stand guard at the door of your mind. Don't let negative Nancy or negative Ned get inside of your head. And that's all I can tell you guys. Accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. And if you ever go to an Asian country, get ready. If you've never been to one, it's going to be a little bit different. Anyway, adios, guys. Bye-bye.